I just want to say I can't begin to tell you what an honor it is for me to be able to share the stage with you. This is the best job perk ever.
Well, I can't tell you how incredibly privileged I feel that you're asking the questions. I know your research. I know how much you care about many of the issues that I address either directly or indirectly in my book. And so it was a real treat to know that you were going to be the person that I'd spend a little more than an hour talking to. So thank you.
Well, what can I say? Wow.
Can you guys hear me back there? Okay.
What we decided to do, I mean, as you can see, this is a packed crowd, and there were many more that would have liked to have been here. So we put up a couple of websites and asked students to send in questions. And so a lot of the questions that I'll ask you come from students, although I'll take my prerogative and, either ask you a little bit more or throw in a few of my own. And I'm going to start with a question from Jared Ayer, who's working on a master's in public administration. And he asks about something.
Sure. Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Whoever asked the question is here. Stand up. I like knowing who's asking the questions. Okay? Jared?
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. They didn't know I was going to be using their name, so I hope I didn't embarrass you.
Don't run out the door, okay? At the end of this.
But here at the university, we've been actually talking a lot about leadership. And he wanted to know, first, how do you see yourself as a leader?
Wow, I haven't been asked that question before. I don't know that I set out to be a leader. I set out to first improve myself, to develop myself, my skills, my abilities as far as I could go. I'm a very, very competitive person, but I compete with me more than I compete with other people. And I think it was that desire to improve me that led me to want to help the environment I was in to be better. And to the extent that I truly believe you lead by example, for me it was and has always been the force of the ideas, the force of doing what I thought was right that has, I hope, led people to work with me towards goals that we've been able to accomplish. So you ask how I think of myself as a leader. I don't. I think of myself as someone who wants to give. And in that giving, I hope that I set the example, and I have, because I've had so many people join with me to do such wonderful things. And one of the reasons I wrote my book was because I had been catapulted from my world in New York, which wasn't a very small world. I was a circuit court judge, nothing to sneeze at. And I loved my life, but I got put on the Supreme Court and I was catapulted into, again, another alien world. And a not national stage, but a world stage. And I really started to get afraid that I would lose who Sonia really was. And, power can corrupt. I watch it. And I know that it can make you full of yourself if you let it. And I'm trying to work very, very hard to always remember that I didn't get to where I got by myself. And, I tell my friends I made a very thick book. So when they think that I've gotten conceited, hit me over the head with it.
Well, There'll be no tossing of books around here, believe me. One of the most common questions, we'd probably have half the audience standing up for this one, had to do with your experiences in college. Not surprising, these are college students. And in the book, you describe very clearly how at times you felt like an alien, came from a different background than many of the other students at Princeton. You describe even simple things like not ever having heard of Alice in Wonderland or Phi Beta Kappa. And so the question is, how did you, especially in your college years, navigate that world of difference without letting your more hard-scrabble background become what Christina Garcia calls heavy burdens? Or what Brenda Gokul asks, she asked the question, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? And if Brenda or Christina are here? There we go.
One of you, hello. Hi.
Terrific. So what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
It's harder to answer that question. Because you know you live your life with the experiences and learning from them. And I don't know that anything but the school of hard knocks ever gets you to the place to appreciate advice. You know, you read in my book that I was married and divorced. And after I got divorced, every friend and family member told me, we didn't really like him. And I told every one of them, and I mean it, why are you telling me this now? Why not then? And they said, well, you wouldn't have listened. And I now have young cousins getting married. And I take my own advice and I say to them, sweetie, please listen. We know because we love you. And we know who you are and what you are, and we can tell you what we see what might not work. They don't listen. So I don't know that you will listen. But I think what I will tell you is the following. Colleges have huge communities. It's one community with subgroups. And in this large an environment, there are people, and many of them, who you're going to feel comfortable with. Find them. Befriend them. Let them give you comfort about how and what you're doing here. At the same time, however, don't limit yourself to just them. The wonderful thing about community, if it's real community, is that it is supporting, comforting, nurturing, and letting you fly at the same time. It's trying to bring out the best in you and letting you explore with sort of that little security blanket that you had as a kid. So don't cocoon yourself in that world. Go out and meet classmates who are doing things differently than you are. Go out and sit at a lunch table filled with kids from another part of the United States that you've never visited. Talk to them, find out what their families are like. Take classes that you know nothing about simply because it's an area that you find intriguing. Learn about things that you hear about in the news so that you can actually understand the world around you. You can be a lit person and still take an economics course. You can take a religion course and learn about religions that are not your own. Religion is such a central part of our society and world. We have wars going on because of religion. And unless you have some basic understanding of the tenets of the major belief systems in our world, you're really not going to be an educated person. Become that while you're here. Think of college as a growing experience, a learning experience, one in which you become a more interesting person. Because that, to me, is really the purpose of college, to give you curiosity. Because curiosity will make you learn things that you don't know and give you confidence about your ability to get to know. And so, were you Brenda or Christina? Yes. All right, Brenda. At the end of your 4 years, write me a letter and tell me if you took my advice, okay?
Okay, we'll hold her to it.
Yeah.
Staying with the college theme, you got to meet some of our student leaders earlier on, and a few of them kind of whispered in my ear that I should make sure and ask you about the role of student activism. They pointed out that when you were in Princeton, you were very much an activist, particularly related to the diversity requirement, Latino causes, social justice more generally. What is the role, and what was your role, and what do you think their role should be in terms of using their college years to change the world?
College is the perfect time to be idealistic, because you haven't learned how hard it is out there. No, seriously. You hear your parents say that all the time. You hear your professors maybe occasionally say it more elegantly and less directly than I do, but they do say it. If you start out your life not believing in yourself, not believing that you can actually live in a better world, it's not going to be a very happy life for you. It is, to me, that impulse to give and that impulse to make at least something around you better that I think brings true happiness in life. However, and the wonderful student leaders I met are not going to like when I say this. You don't have to be a student leader to do that. Not everybody is cut out to be a leader in that sense of the word, of being the person who stands up and sort of does the rah-rah and gets people moving and activated or comes up with all the ideas. Everybody has their own personality, and everybody has their own interest. And if everybody was doing the same thing, then our improvement would be very limited, because our needs are vastly different. And we have needs in so many different areas of society and of community that we can't have everybody doing the same thing. What I mean by giving is taking personal responsibility to think outside of your own needs, to look around and say, there is this little piece of my world that I want to make a difference in. And whether that's tutoring kids who need help, going and sitting with elderly people in a senior home, whether it means going on campus and picking up litter with a group of students, it can mean anything. But what it should mean above all is rising above yourself to give more. I have been talking recently about the 2 questions that I ask myself each night before I go to sleep. And the first one is, what have I given to anyone today? What have I done that's been something nice for somebody else? And the second thing I ask myself is, what have I learned new today? Now, virtually every day on the Supreme Court, that's an easy question to answer. And so I have banned myself from answering something professional. But I don't limit what I've learned about the world, what I've learned about human nature, what I've learned about an organization, a new fact I heard that I didn't know before. It doesn't have to be big, momentous things, but they're building blocks to growing, and I accept them as such. So I don't know that you have to ask yourself those two questions, but do think of questions for yourself at the end of each day that will give your life meaning. And for the student leaders, you found a route that's more similar to mine, and it's so, so gratifying. But if you remember in my book, I said that I thought that the Latino group at Princeton was a ragtag bunch of students in ripped dungarees, which weren't in fashion back then, and work shirts, okay? But I joined them, and we set out to make changes that we as a group were able to agree were important to improve our life at Princeton.
Well, you might be pleased to hear that we've been in the top 10, well, the top 3 for the last 10 years in terms of students that go to the Peace Corps. And community service is something that we think is very important here. So, thank you very much for...
the plug.
Yeah, absolutely. No, words to live by. A number of students noted, and I think that particularly our students who come from diverse backgrounds, that you've been a victim of stereotypes or worse throughout your life. Yet you note in your book, you refer to the father of one of your classmates, and you say that there's a difference between stereotyping or discrimination due to ignorance and that's due to stupidity or mean-spiritedness. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference and what that means to you and what that might mean to other students who have felt stereotyped or discriminated against?
I get asked that question a lot, and I try to explain that there is no one answer to how you deal with those moments that you've been discriminated against. Because the reasons and the context differ. Each situation should have a different response. I use one example in my book of a court security officer, not a marshal, a court security officer who, when I was a Court of Appeals judge, called me honey. Now, that was stupidity. All right?
Yes.
And I knew it because I was very friendly to him. I treated him as I try to treat everyone, with a great deal of respect. And I think he just fell into treating me like he treated his friends, not realizing that I might feel insulted by being called honey. And I actually went up to him and very quietly said, I know how much you like me, but I think that may give other people bad impressions if you call me honey. I think it's better to call me Justice, or Judge back then. But I could have done it angrily and embarrassed him, or I could choose to have done it quietly and educate him. And there are those moments. Yet there was another one with that I describe in high school with a very, very dear friend who I've actually lost touch with, and I think this incident had something to do with it. I was in her home, and her father was watching television, and the Puerto Rican parade came on, and he was watching it, and then started to lament that it's an insulting word, but I repeat it only for what happened. Those dirty spics. And I looked at him, and my girlfriend was mortified, and I could see her turning bright red. And I looked at him and said, Mr. So-and-so, you see that skin? I'm a dirty spick. That was mean-spirited. And I knew it. That was prejudice. But again, I didn't get up and scream and shout. I made my point and I left. There are screamers and shouters. And sometimes that response is necessary. Sometimes in certain public settings, if someone says something that's objectionable, someone has to get up and tackle it. In other moments, as you'll know from my book, I filed a complaint because of something an interviewer said to me when I was interviewing for a job in law school. So there is no one way to deal with it, other than what I describe in the book, which is to remember that I don't let others judge me. I judge me. If you can take pride in what you've done, in how far you've come, in the improvements you're trying to make in yourself and in the life you're leading, then frankly, to hell with them. No, seriously. You have to be able to look at others and say, you don't judge me, I judge me. But the only way you can do that is if you are actually really doing things to improve yourself in a way that you can take your own pride in what you're doing. Once you do that, I think it becomes so much easier. It is so hard to watch classmates who seem to know what to do instinctively because they've been exposed to it their entire lives. It's hard to see kids who study for a couple hours and they can bang out a paper. I lived with a roommate who the night before a paper was due wrote a flawless paper. It would take me, I was the one working on the paper 3 months before, you know, and editing again, and I just couldn't get it done. But I realized very early that if I competed with her, I was on the losing end forever. And so I went back to competing with me, trying to get better at writing, trying to improve myself. And now, I still don't know if I'm a better writer than she is, probably not, but I'm doing okay.
Yeah. No question.
Yeah.
No question. You've obviously had success really throughout your life. And given some of the strained relationships in your family that you write about very candidly, and the fact that no one in your family had gone to college, both Awet Alzar, who's in computer science, and Chloe Lee in biochemistry and neurobiology, ask, and if you're here, please stand up.
Alex and Chloe?
Awet Alzar and Chloe Lee. Okay.
Hello you guys. I'm glad you're here.
Okay. Who or what was the biggest source of support that helped motivate you to pursue your goals and be so successful?
I think I say in my book that to be successful in life, there's one key ingredient. Finding someone in your life who unconditionally loves you. And I got that from my grandmother. I could do no wrong even when I did wrong. And that you need to find someone who has faith in you. But it doesn't always have to be a relative. And there are a lot of families who don't know how to do that because they've never had it in themselves. And so giving it to you might be very difficult. And I've had friends who have found it by looking outside of their own families to the families of friends and have found sort of a second mother or a second grandmother. I have friends who have been mentored by teachers. I have others who have found the support in their churches or synagogues or in their religious settings. I have others who have found it from older friends, much like I did in high school. He was only 2 years older than I am, my friend Ken, who coached me in debate. But I learned so much from him, and he has so much faith in me, even to this day. He's a dear friend. But you do need someone to sort of talk to and comfort you and help you during those tough times. But if you wait for them to find you sometimes, you may miss out on the opportunity. You have to be, if you don't have it naturally, look for it, because it will help you in that growth. In the end, however, as important, that's what gave me the confidence. What gave me the drive was my mother. And I talk about the rocky times we had when I was younger and how we have grown in life together. But watching her value education really gave me the star to follow. It was, she always said to me, Sonia, the one thing you have to be able to do, I never thought I would be a widow at 36 raising 2 kids. Said this was never a part of my imaginings ever. You have to be able to support yourself, no matter what. Go and get an education. She was more worried about me going to college than my brother. Now, my brother went to college, and as you know, he did very well also. But she always said to me, Sonia, it's harder for you, but you've got to be able to support yourself. And so she really, that was it. But you can find role models, not just in families. Look around you. Talk to successful people you know. One of the wonders about my book is how many people I know that I've shared so much with, who have finally told me of the difficulties in their own lives. My book has given people permission, for even my friends, to share with me. I think the one thing I regret that I didn't do in college, we had study groups, we spent hours together. You know, you had a glass of back then, sangria at the student pub. I guess you guys don't do that anymore, right? And we would go on till 3 in the morning discussing some great polemic that we had just studied or was happening in society. But we didn't spend a lot of time asking questions about each other and what we had done to become who we were. And if I had to do my college days over again, I would do more of that. I'm getting a second chance, by the way. Because of my book, my closest friends in college and law school have reunited with me in a more proactive way. And in fact, in Portland, the dean of the law school there is an old Yale classmate. And 4 of us came together this weekend. And I learned more about them than I ever knew my 3 years in law school.
That's just amazing. I'm having some of the same experiences with my high school friends. At that point, I think that some of the insecurities keep you apart. And now that we're older and it doesn't matter, we tell each other. But
I think if you learn to share it earlier, it's just better for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know that we're supposed to kind of tiptoe around some of the Supreme Court kinds of questions, but I think that this one is going to be okay. And it's from Mary Ruffin, who was a student in one of the seminars on your book. I don't know if Mary's here. There she is. All right.
Hold on, where are you, Mary? Stand back up.
Right over there.
Ah, hello.
And Mary wants to know, and I think all of us are curious to hear about, what do you believe is the public's biggest misconception about the Supreme Court and its justices?
Mary, no one's asked me that before. I think the biggest misperception is that it's easy to decide our cases. Most people read our decisions, even when they're split, and they read one side and they read the other side, they get persuaded by one and the other, and they look up and say, well, that was easy. Why did the other guys disagree? All right? And most people actually reading the cases see, well, this is really clear. Why did anybody think there was a question? And I remember when I was on the district court, a very big case for me, one that actually brought me to national attention as a judge, had to do with something nobody in this room, I think, may have been alive for, I don't know. But all the adults will remember it. It was a 1995 baseball strike. And they struck before the World Series when the Yankees were ahead. And the owners, just before the beginning of spring training the following year, had decided to hire scabs. And the NLRB had come to court asking the court to issue an injunction against the owners doing that, saying that they weren't bargaining in good faith. I'm simplifying the issue. Before I rendered the decision, every major legal pundit in the news and on printed and live or television was talking about how difficult the legal question was and how there was no clear answer. I render my decision, and everybody's writing the next day saying, well, that was easy. I realized in that moment that what happens is the following. In every case the Supreme Court takes, virtually every case, there's a circuit split. There are 13 circuits in the United States. And circuits are the federal appeals courts, and the states are divided among those 13 circuits. And they disagree on the answer to legal questions. In that circuit's answer stands and controls the law until the Supreme Court says something different. The court's cases are almost always cases in which there has been a circuit split. And if you get it, you understand that there can't really be a circuit split unless there's an important legal question at issue that's not, the answer to which is not clear. If it were clear, all 13 circuits would agree. So there has to be something in the issue that is perplexing and difficult to come to an answer about. Otherwise, you would not have that disagreement. Yet, we render our decisions, and because we're great lawyers, every justice was trained as a lawyer. You have to be gifted in your craft to have been selected at all. Many of us have been judges, right now, only one of us has not been a judge before on a different court. The thing we know how to do is to write persuasive opinions. And the trick in reading our opinions in our dissents is finding that fault line of where the lack of clarity came. And it's that fault line where the difference of opinion arises. And it's that fault line that makes our judging so hard. It is not easy work. And coming to an answer is not always so straightforward.
Thank you. I'm going to keep on going. One more question about the Supreme Court. And it comes from Glenna Martin, a medical student. And Glenna, are you here?
Did you get in? Are you working in a hospital somewhere?
She's probably.
Oh, there she is.
All
Hi.
right, terrific. She notes that during the era of the Warren Court, Edmund Wilson, a prominent critic and historian, wrote that the Supreme Court was the most moral of our original institutions. Do you think that's still accurate today? I mean, we hear a lot of...
Can I take the fifth? No, 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 no. I won't do that. I will answer it. Every single justice is passionate about the same thing. We're passionate about the Constitution, about the laws, about our democracy, and about how to ensure that it is working the way it should. What we disagree on is what's the best answer for that. But if you understand that that passion is morality, that we are doing it not from self-interest. You know, we've got jobs for life. And in many ways, our salaries are, not in many ways, in all ways, our salaries are controlled by Congress. I just got a raise after 20 years, okay? And I'm sure that if half the Congress knew that I was getting a raise, they would have said no. But my point is that if he was using that word in the sense that we act without self-interest, we don't have to get elected, we don't have to cater to interest groups, we do what we think is right. If you define morality that way, then I think he was right.
Okay, I'm going to move back a little bit more in terms of pre-Supreme Court. We have a lot of students that are really interested in careers in public service, some of them including going into the law, some of them public administration, all over the place. And so there's 3 students here, Bridget Rossback, political science and economics students, Matter Amira, who's pre-law, and Alejandra Suazo, who's in sociology and poli-sci, and all of them asked similar versions of the same question, and they had to do with...
Are you here?
Any of them? Okay, there we go, 2 of them. All right, all 3 of them.
All of you in the
All right.
same area. I'm pretty impressed. Okay.
Well, you all asked very similar questions, and it had to do with what would you say about what kind of career advice or pre-career advice would you give, but specific to women, and in some cases specific to Latina women who are wanting to enter careers in public service?
I can't give you specific advice to Latina women. I can give you advice that I give everyone. The work you do the best is the work you love. The thing that excites you. The thing that makes you want to get up in the morning and do what you're doing. And judging that by how others judge it is going to be surefire to disappoint you. It goes back to understanding that the greatest contribution you can make is figuring out what you think is important to you. What kind of work will satisfy you? What kind of work will make you feel meaningful? What kind of work do you think will make a contribution to improving something that you think is significant? There is not one area in the Latino community, not one area in any minority community, and not one area in America that goes without needs. We don't have enough resources. Our communities are struggling in every field. And so it doesn't really matter what you choose. You can make a difference. The trick is figuring out, what is it that I like doing? What is it that I feel is important? Almost doesn't seem like an answer because what you're looking for is greater guidance. But we all have interest. We all have things that we get excited about. That's one of the things about what I was talking about earlier when I said take courses in different areas. Don't track yourself too early in your career in college. Do a little bit of sampling to see what your choices are. Talk to your friends who are doing different kinds of majors and figure out what kind of work they do and what excites them about it. And think about what it is that you like doing and ask your question, why? If you do it without judgment, you can figure out how to do almost any job and make it a caring job. I tell kids all of the time, I have friends who love numbers and who love being accountants. Now, I can't imagine for me a more boring area than to sit there playing with numbers all day, but they do. And they do, and they're excited about it, and it stimulates them, and they use that in a variety of different ways, including every public agency, every non-for-profit, every group that is doing good work needs financial people. So there's no dichotomy between liking something mundane like accounting and doing public service. And so the trick is trying to figure out what it is that you're good at, what you like, and then translating it into giving. I assure you, it will be meaningful.
But in your book, you certainly talk about a number of experiences. You just talked about them a minute ago, being called honey, et cetera, that are somewhat different for women or for Latinos than they might be for a man, a white man. And so can you nuance that at all?
I've talked publicly about this. It was very, very, very hurtful for me. During the last nomination process, there were many people saying I wasn't smart enough. You spend your lifetime doing what I did in my academic career and my scholarship and my opinion writing, and for people to call you dumb, it hurts. And we all have experiences that are different, that are hurtful, that are challenging to our own self-image. And you're right, Latinos do face some unique circumstances. Almost every Latino student, not all, but virtually all, who comes from parents who don't speak English, have had to struggle with writing. It's just a given. I describe it openly in my book. Writing is not natural. Anybody who thinks it is deluding themselves. Writing is like any other skill. You have to work at it to improve. And some people take to it because they like that activity, then they take to it and sort of sponge it up. And other people have to practice it more for it to become second nature. But even today, I sit down at the typewriter. You can see my age. We were talking about typewriters earlier. That's what happened. I sit at my computer screen drafting, and there's nothing I draft that goes out, even to my law clerks, in a first draft. And I know my colleagues do. And I won't mention who. I saw a first draft of one of my colleagues, and I thought to myself, my first draft's better than this. But I'm more demanding of me because I don't think of myself as a natural writer. But yes, we have different experiences, and yes, we're going to have stereotypes that are going to, where people are going to pass judgment on us. But that goes back to my first point, which is, what do you do about it? You prove it wrong. Because if you don't do that, how do you change it? And how do you change it unless you're willing to work destroy the stereotypes. We have to have more bean counters. We have to have more nerds who are going into STEM. We have to have in our communities more people involved in becoming business people, making money and giving some of it back, by the way. Because there's nothing evil about making money. What's evil is if you make it and don't put it to good use. That's the evil. And so I think that's why I say to you that I don't really think that it's an issue of planning your life differently. I think it's an issue of looking at what you need to do in a slightly different way, of sort of preparing yourself within yourself and your strengths, trying to figure out, what am I really good at? What do I really like doing? And then making that work for your contribution.
This is in line with that, how do you figure things out? I'm going to ask you a question from me. I think I've often joked that if I ever wrote a memoir, it would be called How I Became a Straight White Man. and well, and the reason for that.
One of the guys that I was up in Portland with was Rudy, my friend, who said you argue like a man.
Well, in essence, we grew up wielding power from the margins, overcoming barriers. We think of ourselves probably still to some degree as outsiders, looking in that window. On the other hand, in different ways, we're the ultimate insiders. We're the man. And so how do you deal with that tension and with those contradictions?
Teddy Shaw, who was the head of the NAACP, was a high school friend of mine. He's now a professor at Columbia Law School. One day we're having dinner, and he looked at me. I was a judge then. And he looked at me and he said, Sonia, did you ever imagine that they were going to let the inmates run the asylum? Your question speaks to that, okay?
Yes. Okay, next one. All right.
No, but I don't.
Yeah.
We both wield a significant amount of power. But you, like me, are one voice in a larger organization. You've got a president who's above you. You have a board of regents who sort of can nix some of your ideas.
Absolutely.
All right?
Not that they ever would.
Yeah, no. You got students who might not agree with you.
Now that's true.
And I can assure you, you have faculty that might not go along.
Okay. Universities.
No, exactly, I do. And I got 8 colleagues, not all of whom I can corral at any moment, okay? The one thing you learn about power is that it's shared. And that to affect change, you have to not become just a straight white man or an inmate running the asylum, but that you have to have enough strength in your own character, in your own judgment, in your own sense that what you're doing is right, that it's something that's giving in the right way, that you can convince others to join you in that. And so I understand in this position that I can't affect all the changes. I tell audiences all the time, if there is not a decision of mine that you don't like in my tenure, then I haven't really been a justice. Because I can't rule in the way of that all people will like at every juncture. But what I hope you will judge me on is understanding that my motives, my morality, is always pure. Because I can't guarantee outcomes. Neither can you in this position. And in the frustrations of it, because of that, I'm sure there are many. Those are the most difficult to deal with. Because there are moments where I see the need being so great for something to go a particular way, and others just don't agree. Coming from the background I do and understanding the need, it can be a great, great weight. And you can only keep plugging at it step at a time and hope that over time you can move the mountain an inch.
Now, that's something that was very clear in your book, that you're a big believer in incremental change, that not everything happens in big leaps.
Well, some people are capable of doing that. There are transformative people. And I don't naysay their ability. I just don't see myself as one of those people. I didn't see myself as someone who could do it that way. And so I chose the path that I felt most comfortable in.
Interestingly enough, from the outside, I think we'd see you as a leaper and transformative leader. And in line with that, we've talked a lot about some of the barriers that you've overcome. Olga Barajas in political science asks, Olga, are you here? There you are, terrific.
Did you plant them in the front?
I did not.
Thank you, Olga.
And they didn't know that I was going to call on them either. What other barriers do you believe still need to be broken or overcome in order to improve the representation of women, Hispanics, or other minorities in the U.S. government?
Money.
Okay.
No, seriously. I don't, look at what's happening in politics today. What is talking the loudest is money. Look at the last presidential election. Look at some of your local elections. Think about what makes a difference in corporate settings. Your prestige is tied very much to your recompense. Your power is tied to the position that you have and how much money you're receiving to do it. For us to really get to the higher levels of government, we're going to have to learn how to work the political system at its highest levels. And that means being involved in the activities that promote people whose ideals you believe in, help get them elected, work for them, do things that will bring you to the attention of the people in government who are in control of those decisions. And that means joining resources together and looking to support people's attempts to make a difference. And that is collective effort in a really big way. And if you're talking about the barriers, it's not just in government. Look at law firms. We still have an abysmal number of minorities and women as partners in the major law firms. One of my friends just said last night that if you look at the statistics, we have less women, we have less minorities as partners in major law firms than we had 15 years ago. We are going backwards, not forward. Those are scary sort of numbers, but that's true across the board. Yes, there's some progress. We're over 50% of women in most law school classes, but we're not seeing it trickle up. And so we've got to make some real concerted efforts to look at the barriers that exist across the board, not just in our educational institutions. We have to do more in educating people about what makes a great partner. Is it someone who practices law in your own self-image? Or is it recognizing that the society needs lawyers who practice with different styles and in different ways that are just as effective? I think the answer is the latter, but I don't think that we've actually taught that lesson. Do we need government leaders who sort of are cut from the same mold, or do we need to change the dialogue about what makes a good government leader?
We're actually having some of those same conversations in terms of students and what do we mean by we admit top students? What does that top mean? So it's a really good question that we need to be asking ourselves because society looks different.
I know in Princeton that one of the things, I was on their board of directors a few years back, that one of the things they were looking at was the fact that there were very few class presidents that were women. Very few women who were running for alumni representative as students. And there was a very in-depth conversation among the trustees that continued after I left, and I know they've done a better job of how to stimulate women, the young female students' interest in becoming leaders in those fields.
Well, we're getting towards the end here, and I want to ask a question that I just loved.
That time just went by so
I know,
fast.
that's just, we could talk forever.
I suspect we can.
Just you and I and our 400 closest friends. But this question comes from Zachary Brill, who's in comparative literature and philosophy. Are you here, Zachary?
Yep. Which way?
Okay. So,
Hi, Zach.
hi. And so he wants to know, what are you optimistic about? Looking into the future, I mean, it's clear that your optimism, that your idealism has carried you a long way. When you look forward, what are you optimistic about? What gives you hope?
I'm having a conversation tonight, I think, here with
Yes.
Eric Blue.
Yes.
And Eric's thesis is that we're a omniculturalist society.
Yes.
And by that he means that he's a little bit back into the melting pot theory. David Dinkins used to talk about New York and say, we're not a melting pot, we're a great big salad.
Mixed salad, yes.
Right? We're a lot of little pieces put together to make a better dish, okay? I think I'm more a David Dinkins than an Eric Liu. But I am very, very optimistic about the power of minorities to change the dialogue in this country. I see the growing demand in the Latino community to unite in some of the big issues that face all of us, even though we're different cultures. I see it in African American groups today. They have a more economically different, socioeconomically different populations than the Latino populations do. They've got African Americans who are really rich. They've got a vibrant middle class that's supporting the arts in African American history, in theater, and I think we have Latino groups now following that path as well. I am deeply optimistic that we are going to have a more inclusive society in the next 20 to 50 years.